Good afternoon. My name is John. The reason for this video is to showcase slash provide an answer to a issue I had while making an RTS style game um, on my own that I didn't find much good documentation for to help people solve. So I have found a collision based way to select and deselect units in the RTS style. So as you can see, selected, deselected. There's a lot more going on in the background there, but just for the purpose of the collision-based system, that's what this video is going to be about. So the reason why I wanted a collision-based version of this is because, so if I show you here, show bounds, as you can see, these are my actor's bounds. And if I do this, it's only when I get close enough to actually hit like a collider or something. I believe that blue box would be the collider bounds. So parts of what I was doing or having issues with is because I was at like say this like an 85 for example, that's close enough. I would be getting selections from way out here, even though obviously my character is like way over here. And so as you can see, I can actually get pretty close. Um, and still like miss, which again, you would just have to fix your collisions after that point. What I can do though is actually click on the character's model um, to select the unit as well. Uh, so the way I am accomplishing that, and I will go into further detail, and disclaimer, this is not a beginner guide or a complete how-to, but I will give you basically what you'll need and link a beginner guide as well if you want me to, because I do think that's important, is to see how I got here. But I'm more here to just give you the end product. So let me get rid of my bounds. And then if I do show collisions, oops, did I spell that right? Oh, sorry, I kept adding an S. That's my bad. Okay, so as you can see all along these arms, that's a collider. Right there, that's a collider. His head has a collider, right? You get it. So uh, again, I want it to where like maybe I do something like that, um, and generally it won't just like pick up every little thing. Uh, and the way I accomplish that is, let me exit out of here for you, is I did the general setup for basically enhanced input action, left click, on triggered, you're going to do your selection box is active, selection box started, and then selection box completed. And that's just a normal Boolean enhanced input action. Um, and all this is doing is sending a message to the HUD using interfaces to do so. So those three functions inside the actual HUD, again, this is my HUD class. Um, you have start, which is just a simple get mouse position, and then you're going to set it into a 2D vector or basically two floats. And then I set a boolean called draw selection box. While it's active, you want to uh, basically update the current position as you go. So again, set the start position and then the current position. And so how that's going to look is start position's here, and then current position is where my mouse is, like after, right? Okay, cool, obvious. So then go back into my HUD, and then this is where the bulk of everything that is happening. Hopefully you can see everything there. Again, I'm just going to take like 5 to 10 seconds to show each step again at the end. So that way, if all you want is the details, you have them. So essentially what's happening here is when I release my mouse button, so selection box end, I turn off my Boolean. And the only reason for that Boolean is so I can draw my black lines, right? And then the reason this is here is that was the old way I was doing it, was using get actors and selection rectangle, but that specifically targets bounding boxes. And as you saw, the bounding boxes are usually a lot less like refined or defined um, around the actor. So like uh, I had that big box around the character there because his arms are in a T pose, right? So it was a constantly changing thing. You never knew what you were going to get. I'm going to close this so I stop going to it. So I'm just going to delete that. And then these are just 4 draw lines. That's how I get the black lines. Again, there's plenty of guides on how to do stuff like that, and I will provide links. But okay, so turn off draw selection box, cool. This query player arm length, uh, because I like being able to like zoom in, zoom out, and like rotate and stuff, I need to know how long my arm length is and then add some value to it. So that's all that's for, and the code for that is here. Query player arm length. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Just returns a float. Anyway, um, and so this is where it gets like basically what you really want. So first thing you're going to want to do, you're going to take your starting and your current coordinate, you're going to add them together and then get the average. Cool. And then obviously deproject screen to world. That requires that screen position. So again, just the average of your start and current. And then you have your owning player controller. That's just HUD stuff. So that's going to give you 2 vectors. First is the world position. So that's going to be like basically where in the world it thinks. So if you go here, like you see how it causes that X. That world position is that right there. Let me do it again. Yeah, it's like, oh, you're way up here, right? And then it shoots. Let me go back. So that's that world position, and then the world direction is that direction essentially. It basically just says like, okay, the screen is facing this way, or your camera is, whatever. So here is a normalized vector in that direction. And so again, I'm basically taking those 2 values and doing, if I get something back, so if my screen, or if my, somehow I'm not getting a value back, I'm just validation checking essentially. From there, you're going to take your world position and put it directly into a multi-box trace for objects, and that's going to be your start, right? And then you have your world position, and you're going to add that to your world direction, and then you're going to times it by some number, right? Again, I have this because I have that adjustable arm length. If you want to do not that, obviously you would have to switch this to a single float, and then you could just do 5,000. But because mine can change, yeah, you get the idea. So anyway, that goes back there. Okay, and so that's going to be your end, right? So you have your start, your end, and then you have these half sizes, right? And so the half sizes, again, you're going to take your start and your end, or current, as I put it, and you're basically going to turn those into like square length and widths, right? So you see this black square. So my start is that top left corner. The end is the bottom right corner, right? Essentially what I'm doing there is like just doing the end minus the starts x, and then the end minus the starts y, and then divide it by 2. And the reason you divide it by 2, and this is important, is because it says half size, right? It basically works as like the radius of a circle, but instead it's the radius of a square or rectangle, however you want to justify that in your head. Um, and then you are going to take the absolute value of that. So the reason you have to do that, right, is so say this gives you a positive number. Well, this would give you a negative number, right? But either way, you want a positive number, so absolute value. Cool. All right, and then you're just going to plug those in. Half size Y, half size Z. Uh, Tricky thing there is like when you're transitioning from real space to screen space, like X, Y, but in real space it's like Y and Z, right? So just make sure you're lining those up correctly. Just make that as clear as possible for you. Okay, and then I'll put that back if that's all right. Cool. All right, next part. So you have your object types. So you could, if you wanted to, promote this to a variable and just make an array of object values. For me, I know all I'm looking for are pawns. So I just did it like an on-the-fly thing, or made it like local to the event. And to do that, I did literal enum object type query. Again, if you just type that in, literal enum object type query, and it's right there, right? Cool. Uh, and then you put it into a make array because it needs to be an array. Yeah. And then from there, you have your orientation. I skipped a step, sorry. So orientation, I feel like there's more than one way to do this. For me, in my head, it was easiest to just do get owning pawn, right? Oops. Get owning pawn, and then get the control rotation. And that's the rotation of the player's controller, or basically my camera angle, right? Um, cool. You get it. All right. So what that for you is going to do is A, it's going to tell you, did you even get anything? So yes or no. Um, and then if you did get something, here's an array of things you got, right? I like to do multi-box. If you just want to get like the first thing you hit, use single or just box trace for objects, but I prefer multi-box. That's just me. Um, and then I did a reverse for each loop here. That is because originally how my system worked is I was removing things. So really that could just be a for each loop. Really doesn't matter. And to get that up, for each loop, right? Um, but yeah, you don't need to worry about the direction of the loop. I'll probably change that back after this. So you're going to loop through your body and you're going to see, does it implement an interface or some sort of qualifying material, right? If you want all actors, then just add them to an array of actors, right? Um, but for me, I specifically want specific actors, specifically actors that implement the select actor interface. And yeah, it's just a filter. Do you need it? Technically, no. I have it personally, right? So you select all of those, and then once you're done looping through your loop, you're going to basically uh, send it. So here I have my RTS character, which is, you can't see it, or yeah, like you can't technically see it, but if I hit F8 here, give me just a moment, or not, okay. Oh, I know why. There we go. So if I hit F8, and then we go over here, there is in fact an RTS character there, right? So all that for me is doing is just sending it to the RTS character. And then what the RTS character does with that, it's like tracking and stuff. Again, like you probably want to send it somewhere or like copy it or whatever, and then if you're done with it, clear it, right? So that way it's ready to go for the next selection. And so again, what that's allowing me to do is basically do that, which sends a collision check in a direction that the camera is facing and interact, and basically select things, right? So again, so I actually hit with that box there, so it put it in there, and then I can make more, and then these ones are like player owned ones. Yeah, so again, I thought this was a useful solution because the OBB or bounding box version of this solution was not very accurate. So now I'm just going to go back through and hover over what you need to probably copy or what you want to see. Um, and again, the main things that you're going to want is some sort of 2D vector, and that's going to hold your mouse position. You're going to want, you can use a gate, but I just chose to use a Boolean. I figured it was just as easy, and maybe I might use it elsewhere. But you could use a gate, 2D Boolean. So if you want to copy this, just make sure 2D vector, you're getting your mouse position and you're saving it correctly. While it's active, again, 2D vector, but this one's going to be current. And then at the end, I'll hover over this for a little bit, and then once you're done, just unpause. Let me zoom in for you. And don't forget, you don't need this. If you are using a Boolean, use the Boolean. Make sure you're deprojecting from screen to world, and it's your two coordinates, get the average, owning, go up, and then send it to your start. Get your orientation from here, right? Get your array of object queries, and then make sure you're getting your half size like this, or some other math function that you would like to use, and that goes up there. And just to show you again, that's all of it put together. And then on the other side of the multi-trace, you don't need the branch if you think you're fine. Just use a for each loop. You don't need a reverse for each loop. And then all you're going to do is use this to filter it, right? If you wanted to just send that, you could, but again, I wanted a filter. And it was easier for me to put that filter here. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And if you want the like drawing lines thing, here you go. Again, that's going to be off the event receive draw HUD. That's like an override function or an override event. And there's that. It's pretty messy, but you're basically just drawing a box using two sets of coordinates. Yeah, all right. That's it. Thank you.